So here is how you would scan in some thumbnail sketches and clean them up and lay them out for a presentation print. First off, I need to scan. Now you might have a different scanner than I do. I actually have an Epson Perfection 4490 Photo. It is about 10 years old and honestly does every bit as good as I need it to do. So I open up my scanning program. I have my scanner turned on and hooked up and whatever I want on there to scan. And you can see the last thing that I scanned. I'm going to reposition this paper here. Let's take a look at settings quickly before we scan. The default settings on whatever you're looking at are almost guaranteed to be different than this. But what you do is you set document type to reflective for pretty much anything that is not film. And the auto exposure type is usually left to photo. Really the only time you want to set it to document if you're scanning in something black and white that was printed. So I leave that at photo. Image type should be 24-bit color. Resolution, printing resolution is 300 dpi, so that's what I usually leave mine at as just a standard. However, these little thumbnails I've drawn are a little bit on the small side, so I do want them to be bigger on my final paper. If I want to scan something in and print it bigger than the original, I need to increase the resolution, the dots per inch or pixels per inch. So in this case, I'm going to set mine to 400, which will increase the size of these by about 25%. As far as the settings down here go, I prefer to do all of that on my own in Photoshop, but there are some pretty good selections here that you can go through if you're doing a whole bunch of photos or something. It might be worth your while to mess around with this a little bit and save you time in Photoshop. Up here on my preview window there are some buttons. The marquee button, mostly all I ever use is the delete the existing marquee, and then what you can do is just click and drag to select an area that you want to scan. If you don't have a specific area selected, it will just scan the entire bed. But when you're scanning at higher resolutions, especially anything over 300, you don't want to spend a whole lot of time with your scanner working away at processing the information for a bunch of stuff you won't use. So it's useful to make that marquee selection. When I push scan, I get a pop-up window, because that's what I've asked it to do, saying where am I going to send this to, and if it should have a prefix. I'm going to call this one thumbnail so I can find it easily. And as far as file type goes, I by default save mine as a TIFF file, and that is because there is no compression and it's a fairly versatile file. And then I'll click OK. And it'll think a minute while it processes. Like I said, my scanner's about 10 years old, but it's been an excellent little scanner. I've had no need to replace it, and it actually still goes at a pretty decent rate, so it's not anciently slow. Scanners, you want to look for just quality and that you're not getting streaks in it, especially if you're scanning in lots of color stuff. Once it's scanned, my program does not open the file, and I honestly can't remember if that is a default or something that I've set it to do or not do in the past, so yours might actually open the file. But now I'm done with my scanning software, I can actually just quit out of that and then open up what I just scanned in Photoshop. So here's what we've got. And you can see it's not white. Even though the paper was white, it scanned in a little bit dark. Honestly, this is the way I would like it to look, because this gives me more leeway when I'm adjusting how this looks. So let's do the first thing and get this adjusted so the background is white and the drawings are a little bit darker, a little bit cleaner. Where I usually do that is under Image and Adjustments, Levels. I don't use an adjustments layer for this because I actually want this layer to change and be improved. Usually the first thing I do is grab this right arrow on the far right, the white point, and drag it in just enough to where the background cleans up a little bit. I stop before any of my drawing starts disappearing. Then I grab my black point on the opposite side and drag it in a little, which will darken the drawing so that they're easy to see. And you can see that there's a few little smears in here from where the graphite smeared. I'm really not worried about that. If you're very particular and want those gone, you can mess with this a little bit more, or you can even go in with a white paintbrush or eraser and take care of that. The other tool you can use for that sort of thing is the Dodge Burn tool. And I can just run over that little darker area till it brightens up without actually erasing anything. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this particular one because what I'll do now is copy these over to the file that I want to print. So first off, I need to make that canvas. So making a new file, File New, and I'm going to make mine standard print size, which is 8.5 by 11 inches. And you can do wide or tall, it doesn't matter. And this one will be printing resolution, which is 300 pixels per inch at CMYK color, and click OK. So now what I need to do is copy my designs over here. So I grabbed my rectangular marquee tool, set the feather to 0, and selected the first thing that I wanted to copy. Now, I actually like using the cut option because this scan is sort of disposable. I'm going to be getting rid of it when I'm done. I don't want to keep it, but it will help me keep track of what I have and haven't copied if it's actually just not there anymore. So you can cut by going to the Edit menu and cut, or just using the shortcut Command X, which is what I'm going to do, which will fill in that area with whatever your background color is. But now we have it copied to our pasteboard, and we can come over to our new document and paste it. Command V. So if I pulled out a ruler, this would actually be a bit bigger than it was on this original size document because I scanned in at that higher resolution. So again, selecting Command X to cut, and then Command V to paste. Just doing this one by one until I have each one of my thumbnails. If you have any notes that you've written, definitely copy those over too. All right. Now if I zoom in really close, what I can actually see is that the backgrounds on these aren't as nice as I would like them to look. I can see there's a difference between them and the white background. So I'm going to just take this layer here and pop into my layers adjustment again, which is image adjustment layers. Sorry, levels. I meant to say levels. And pull that white point over just a touch more till that all disappears. I'm going to show you a really neat little trick. So this is the layer we just did that to. If I click on one of these other layers, I can repeat that exact same thing that I just did by holding Command Option and pushing L. And that will use the last level setting that I used, and then I can hit OK. Which is really nice because now I can just pop between these layers very quickly and use Command Option L to make that exact same adjustment to clean them up. So you would arrange these in whichever order you wanted, but then you also need to label what they are. So I would say this is my, wow, that's a big font. Let me make that just a little bit smaller. There we go. Envelope and letterhead. Oh, you can tell it's going to get to be one of those late nights because I can't spell and I can't tell what order things are in. So my envelope and letterhead are actually this one here. And this is my business card front and back. This is my website landing page. And this is my tab flyer. And I would put your name definitely, and maybe the name of whatever company you're developing for, just so that the vital information is on your paper. And my leading is way off. Take the time to make it look good. This is a presentation document. It should look good. Now, if you're going to put it in a binder, keep in mind that about the left ½ inch if you're spiral binding, or almost a full inch if you are punching holes for a 3-ring binder, is going to be interfered with by your binding. So if you're naming stuff, you might want to consider doing a right align and putting it up in the top right hand corner. Once you have everything the way you want it, you've done a spell check, you need to save this file. There's not really a need to save it as a backup editable Photoshop file unless you feel like you're going to come back and change stuff. But you could just save it as a TIFF with no layers, or if you're getting ready to print it, save it as a print PDF, which is what we'll do. So File, Save As, and change the format to Photoshop PDF and name it. When you hit Save, you should get a settings box, and it should be set to high quality print with preserve Photoshop editing capabilities turned off and save PDF. And it will think, and then you need to go make sure that your PDF saved correctly. Now, I just realized, oh no, there it is. I was going to say I didn't know where I saved it to. When I double click on my PDF, it's going to open in my Adobe Acrobat PDF viewer. There are other options out there. I think Google has one. One of my on-site students was telling me about last week. Adobe Acrobat is a free program that you can download to look at PDFs, so I do recommend downloading that and installing it on your computer. So this is ready to go, and it's ready to print.